Welcome to this special edition of Gun News in 5 Minutes. This is Dr. Drake 63. Today we're going to talk to the president and the owner of the Henry Repeating Arms Company. Gentleman's name is Mr. Anthony Imperato. He's got an interesting story to tell as well as a little bit of an industry update, talk about Henry's products. We're here today with the president and owner of the Henry Repeating Rifle Company, Mr. Anthony Imperato. Anthony started this business with his father. What year was that you started?
The first Henry's shipped out of Brooklyn, New York in March of 1997.
Okay. And your dad had a background in the firearms industry, correct?
Well, yeah, actually it goes back decades before to my grandfather on my mother's side of the family and a police equipment shop in Little Italy that was started in 2011, and it was there up until this past few months when I closed it, not because of COVID, but I've been keeping it open for sentimental reasons the past few years because you can't make a living selling guns in New York City. For decades, my father had developed a wholesale law enforcement police equipment supply company that of course included distribution of firearms like Colt and Smith and Wesson. And in the 60s and 70s, etc. He was supplying guns actually all over the world to police departments. So I grew up working behind the gun counter in the 1970s and then into the wholesale business. He was doing some importing and exporting, and I got involved in that too. And some manufacturing. He purchased Ivor Johnson when it was kind of on its last legs in Massachusetts. I think I learned a lot from all of those endeavors and was able to put it to good use because I could wear the shoes of the dealer, the distributor, and most importantly, the consumer. And so my background is quite varied in the gun business, and it's one of those been there, done that. And so I can walk confidently in this industry, knowing how things go.
Going back to the beginning when you developed the H1, did you have any idea? Did you have any imagination? Were your most optimistic hopes or expectations that the Henry Repeating Arms Company would be anything like what it is today?
Well, thanks for the thoughtful and really a great question. When I get sentimental and emotional about this kind of stuff too, actually, before Henry, the decade before, the family business had kind of lost its way, and I didn't even think that I would end up in the gun business, quite frankly. And I'm going to try and give you a quick version of the story, but I took an old licensing agreement that my father had with Colt Fire. We began making some Colt black powder guns in Brooklyn, New York. I put a second mortgage on my house and started that company. And those 3 or 4 years of getting that off the ground and getting our feet back on the ground, that was the platform for me, being along with my father, being able to launch Henry Repeating Arms. Back then, 96, 97, I wasn't thinking about anything where we might be one day. Absolutely not. And my approach was every day like a pinch of sand, a grain of sand, to try and do the best that we can and build a company. And I remember specifically asking myself, what did I want this company to be? That's all that I cared about. And the answer was I wanted it to be the best long gun company in the gun industry. I only imagined being into long guns at that period. Gun companies that were making handguns were under so much pressure from municipalities being sued, New Orleans, Detroit, Chicago, et cetera, suing all of, the gun companies that,
Sure.
which eventually led to the laws not allowing that to continue. But I was so small, I couldn't envision going into handguns and getting crippled by huge legal bills. So the idea was I wanted us to be really a very well-respected gun company for quality, for customer service, and for putting out a product at a value to the consumer, and most importantly, made in America. And so our original motto when we introduced the HO01 was made in America and priced right. And I do remember standing at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. We were in the basement in a very small 10 by 10 space. And I had the one prototype that we had made on a 8-foot table with a cloth on it. And so that was the infancy of Henry.
Flash forward to today. I was looking through your catalog extensively last night. Goes on forever. How many rifles do you guys currently have in terms of makes and models?
Well, we have over 200 SKUs, of which there's probably about, I don't know, 14 or 15 base models. And then, of course, we have a variety of calibers, everything from 22 up to 6.5 Creedmoor. And we're also into shotguns now at this point with our single shot shotguns and our lever action shotguns. So, it is extensive. And of course, we're known for lever actions. But as you might see, we have begun broadening our horizons.
It seems like you've got a couple different factors working in your favor. I mean, number one, Marlin's in limbo. And then the other thing is, with so much pressure out there at various state levels to limit the sales or possession of semi-automatic rifles, that seems to kind of play into the idea that, hey, I'm a shooter and I want to be able to get off a second shot quicker than a bolt action. Lever action seems like a really good alternative.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been preaching that for a while, and we've developed, some more modern versions of the lever actions, like our X model series, etc. And a few months ago, we began a campaign of protect and provide with a Henry by your side, where we're showcasing our lever actions both for home defense, business defense, the homestead, but also to put food on the table and take them hunting and that kind of thing. I'm a firm believer that the lever action is really America's rifle. When you think back 1870s through really the 1980s, 110 years of its use, with all the famous brand names that we know. And then it began petering out because the troubles a couple of those companies had. And we'd like to take credit, and I'm not saying this patting myself on the back, for kind of resurrecting the lever action market and maybe even taking it beyond what the numbers were.
I'd agree with that, sir. In fact, I've got a video out that I think you've seen, which, where I basically say you guys kind of reinvented that market, starting with the 22s. I just can't tell you how many people that I see that, when they are comparing, doing their Ford to Chevy comparison on an entry level type of 22, they're comparing the H1 or the Golden Boy to a Ruger 1022 or a Marlin 60 or something like that. So these are guys that probably weren't ever going to get a 22 rifle, and they had an opportunity to get a Henry.
We appreciate that. And, when I started the company, I wasn't looking at Marlin and Winchester and some others. I was looking to just survive. And, I'm friends with all of those guys. They're all great folks. Chris at Ruger and that whole team, and others in the industry. So there's room for all of us. And anything that made in the USA and the USA gun companies, I do support all of us. But getting back to the lever action, I believe that the lever action is America's unique contribution to firearms design. When you look at all of the other designs of actions, even revolver, semi-auto pistol, bolt action, of course, etc., their birthplace, the origin of those actions were outside of the United States. Lever action is really America's baby. Yeah, it really is, and I think we should be proud of it. And our Long Ranger, as an example, we feel it could deliver, bolt action performance in a lever action, yet it's quieter and it looks American. Let's put it that way. Consumers, the guy on the street that talks to us and says, "Hey, I'd like to see one of these in a I'd like to see you do something in a 308 or a 6.0." Well, here it comes. That's how the big boy came around. We had introduced the Golden Boy with success some 20 years ago, and I kept hearing, "Get us a centerfire, get us a centerfire. We love the brand. We love what you're doing. We love the wood to metal fit, the octagon barrels, the smooth action, etc." And it took some doing, and but we got it done.
Well, it opens the doors. For example, I live in Minnesota, but I deer hunt in Montana. Typical shot is over 200 yards, and something like the Long Ranger is a viable option now for that kind of hunting, where obviously pistol caliber or even 30-30 or whatever, probably don't want to use that at I think my long shot last year was 283 with a 30-06. Well, that Long Ranger 308 or any number of calibers would have done that trick just fine.
Yeah, we're honest with people, especially beginners, and if we don't have something that fits the consumer, we're not going to recommend something just for the sake of selling. We want the consumer to have the right firearm in there. Sure. So, we've got everything. We've got the brush hunting guns, the revolver rifle cartridges, as you mentioned, and then going up into those bigger calibers. And if someone asks us about something and we don't have, an instrument that will serve its purpose for them, we tell them to look at another brand.
How have your side gates been doing? I know a lot of us, prefer a side gate loading type of lever action, and you guys answered the call with that here over the last few years, and now it seems to be a real big part of your catalog. How are those doing in terms of popularity with your customer base?
They're on fire. Let's put it that way. Fire. They're being very well received, and that gun, of course, can be tube fed or it could be, side gate fed. So you have that option. But we're not going to abandon some of what we now call our classic tube fed. The original Henry is a tube fed design, and we still feel that we need, some presence in what we call our heritage models, and we will sustain some of that. In particular, they also serve as a great platform for embellishment because you have the full receiver without the gate cut out. And so we do a lot of special projects with organizations and some custom projects, etc. And those classics make for a better platform for embellishing and engraving.
So you're talking about you've got more real estate on the receiver with a tube fed to put somebody's emblem or
Exactly. And
okay.
done 100th anniversaries of, law enforcement, Kansas City Highway Patrol, New York State Police, and
Yep.
military organization, umpteen projects, and those guns work so well for that. And they, if I have to say so myself, look beautiful.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, so one of the things that we've seen this last year is ammo has been in short supply. Have you thought about getting into ammo production, or is that just such a different animal from your core competency that it doesn't make sense?
It That's the answer. It's such a different animal from core competency. I mean, considering the landscape of gun makers, not many have ever gone from making guns, segueing into also making ammo. The only recent example is Sig Sauer, of course, is now in the ammunition business. Um, it's a completely different science, and I know Vista and Federal, and they now own Remington. They've got the engines going 24/7 there, and our friends over at Olin Winchester too. They're cranking it all out. There's, the last time we went through this a few years ago, there was a lot of crazy rumors going around, which was just insanity. This time, less of the rumors, but still some frustration on the consumer's part about availability, But we've all, within the industry, I think we've come to terms with the fact that we operate in these swings of political winds as opposed to economic situation. And so it'll all cycle back and wash in and wash out, and we'll all continue to move on. Yeah.
You mentioned the work you do with commemorative models and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you've done in terms of law enforcement, veterans groups, things like that? I know when I look on the internet trying to find information about Anthony Imperato, I see pictures of you handing World War II vets a commemorative rifle and things like that. Can you talk about what that means to you a little bit?
Sure. It means a lot. It's been one of the most enjoyable parts of being in this business and what we do at Henry, and some of the most emotional. So we've been recognizing military and law enforcement and other first responders literally almost till day one. As I discussed earlier, I grew up in a police equipment shop that was right across the street from police headquarters, and so we saw it all. And the stories, and we even as a young man, as a boy, going with my father to work in the summer, you'd listen to these stories where it's not easy being a cop. Okay,
Sure.
I knew that 50 years ago, and I know it even more so today. So we decided to make that part of what we do. We honor law enforcement, we recognize law enforcement, and of course, veterans, and even those serving today. And we do that at banquets and NRA annual banquet and some other ways. It's part of who we are. And I've been like so blessed to be able to walk across the stage with a 99-year-old former Marine that landed at Normandy, and he had come down with his family from Pennsylvania to Atlanta, if I remember, and he was in a wheelchair, and he said to me, "Mr. Imperato, I don't want to go out in the wheelchair. I want to walk across the stage." And so I just grabbed him by the elbow, and here he is in his Marine outfit, still fitting him. And his story was when he landed at Normandy and he got through the firefight, there was a blown up church and he found a cross on the ground, and he picked it up that day and he was still wearing it every single day, including the night that we honored him with the gun. And if you go online, you could find his story, or so many other great ones. Louis Zamperini, famous for spending 47 days out at sea and 3 years in a Japanese prison camp. I had the pleasure of going to his home and sitting with him for 3 hours and presenting him with a Henry military tribute edition, etc. So, oh my God, I consider myself so blessed to be able to have met these heroes and so many other recipients, well deserving. So
That's really neat.
yeah.
Well, listen, I know we're running against time here, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time just to share a few minutes with me and my viewers. The very best thing that we can do in this country is support our Second Amendment rights, and I'm glad to see a company like Henry kind of, basically, as you said earlier, coming out of a 10 by 10 display table with one prototype to what you are today with over 200 SKUs and a great following. So again, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. And any of you, I'm not shy about giving out my email address. Any of your viewers want to talk about Henry, they could just email me, anthony@henryusa.com.
Can't tell you how much I enjoyed meeting and interviewing Mr. Imperato today. I hope you enjoyed this as well. This has been Gun News in substantially more than 5 minutes today. Please click and like to subscribe.